And I did that in a very Dutch way, that is that I'm not going to say anything. I give the word to Luc van der Dries, which we asked as president of this meeting. He is coming from the University of Antwerp, of course not from Holland, and I ask him to preside this meeting.
Also here in this first meeting, first discussion on a Dutch theatre group. There are translations because we will be talking in different languages. So if people want to follow the discussion at the moment when German will be spoken, it's necessary to have this kind of microphones like some people have already. But the main language will be English. First, what distance scenography. So from this side, Arthur Zonne on the left, well-known organizer of Dutch theatre. Paul Cook is one of the directors of Hollandia, musician context where we live in today. That would be also my first question to the theatre leaders to talk about.
Comiker, you can call. Before the Second World War, between the two world wars. I mean, we made a play about his work. And we played that was our first performance of this group. We played that in Amsterdam. And then I drove home after the show. And then I thought, well, it looks as if I'm doing an exam there. Big city, all these theater people in the audience, which was for me the reason that I said, I talked with Paul Cook the other day, and we said we have to go really into the country, to isolate ourselves and to develop a new theatrical language. And if that is well enough, then also these people out of the town will come. So we both are living in villages, so we started first with plays who really were performed and who really the plays itself were about farmers and so on. So it's quite a simple story, and we also were subsidized by the province of North Holland, because before Hollandia was set up, I had already two small groups and they also played in North Holland. So that's the way it started.
It's kind of a programmatic statement to start with, not to be in the center of theatre life, but really to take a step back and see in that kind of isolation to redefine, in fact, language of theatre. Paul, you want to add up something about on this being isolated?
Yeah, maybe. We also ask ourselves the question, do you have to play theatre in a building which is built for theatre? But why you can't play in a log where ships going through? I mean, that's really theatre if you sit on the border of a log, I mean, a sluis, that's a log. Yes, and ships come through and comes in and goes away. There's already a story, so there's already theatre. So we simply went into a log, built a theatre over the log, and played the Flying Dutchman. And so we did it also in a glass house. I worked for a long time in a glass house because in my youth I thought, well, I'm going to be a gardener. So I work in a glass house, but that's also really theatre. It's a kind of ritual. You make a hole in the ground, you put a plant in, and you put it very softly. You close the ground, and it grows. you take it out, you bring it to the other people, you get a bit money, you make again that hole, put another plant, and it goes on and on. That's kind of theater also. So we played in a glass house. So
this kind of tension between the very local, where you demonstrated the very locality of being rooted in the ground even. Maybe Henk, you can reflect on this tension between the local of the place and the name of Hollandia as being a very local theatre group, and at the same time making theatre which is appealing to a large European audience.
So I think there were a few indications from which we can conclude that it's all oriented towards this tension. This whole event, of course, is local global. There's a small group from Holland who's really interesting enough for you to come here and look at what they're doing. But on the play, within the play we saw yesterday evening, those tensions are spread over all levels of this play. So on the level of the content, on the level of the form, or on the level of the stylization. So if you remember the play, this naive idealist from Leiden, a small town in Holland, acts within a world historical content, tries to burn down the Reichstag, and in other words, tries to inscribe himself within world history. That's the content on the content. He's also the guy who wants to walk to China. He doesn't manage walking to China. I think he ends up in Constantinople, Istanbul, and goes back. He's also the guy who wants to swim the canal. He doesn't manage to swim the canal, but he has this urge to connect the local with the global. And within the setting, the ideological setting of this play, this is within the under the banner of socialism or communism. But on the level of the form, this content tension is enhanced, is made stronger by using techno music. So if you use techno music to enhance this content, then another tension comes into the play. And on the content, on the form, you have this strange experience that a very Brechtian kind of play is enforced by techno music, which is a global language, becoming a global language nowadays, with certain generation, of course, with certain generation. But still, this tension is enhanced on the level of the form. And I think the site-specific, we are here all in this theater, this futile fight, I like to call it. We're all in this, it's light now, we can see you, but normally, like yesterday evening, it's dark. We're in this futus. We're there, they're here. That's not the way they're playing. They're playing in garages, in warehouses, glass houses, in factories. There's daylight. There are sounds from outside, sirens from police cars. So it's all site-specific. So you have this strange physical experience of being within two places at the same time, in the play and somewhere else. It's like virtual reality. Did you ever have an experience of virtual reality? There's this monitor on your head and you're there, but your body is here. The warmth, the cold, the tactile experience, the kinesthetic experience of your body is here, while your brain or your eyes are there. And I think that's a specific tension that is, well, made productive within the theatre of Hollandia.
Well, that depends from performance to performance. I can give the example because Paul talked about Prometheus. And Prometheus had a punishment. And what was in our performance the punishment of Prometheus? That was to stand with his back to the audience. So he was standing like this. And then he has to play. Well, it's quite difficult to play for 2 hours like this. I mean, it's even boring. but that was how we started off the principle of this performance. And we said to each other, we have to go on with the part of Prometheus standing with his back to the audience as long as possible, until we find it is becoming boring. But of course there were the squires, and the squires, if I'm Prometheus, the squires had a possibility to turn around and to be the choir, to command the play. But it was not only musically, it was very hard, but it was also hard to play with it, because of course an actor doesn't like to stay like this. So they start to move the body, meanwhile like this, like a sort of strong tension there. And how many people were in that show? 11, 12?
11.
Okay. So there were 11 people, and then there was a very big space. That's why me personally, I like very much big spaces. Because of the possibility of doing choreography, geography? Choreography. Geography. Totally something else. It's similar.
Without movement.
Okay. So it gave me the possibility to move with all those 11 bodies through this space. Then the place we were in, that was a very beautiful place. That was a car slottery, demolishing cars. Tom tried to find this word. I would find it too. But anyway, it was a very beautiful space. It was a very hard space also. I mean, everything was beton. There were a lot of cars at the back. The people were sitting on a tribune of cars which we made there. So there was a very, if you saw it, a very aggressive surrounding. But then we, with our costume designer, Kees Dekker, we find, because I tell this because of the body, we found out that the bodies of the actors should be very light, kwetsbaar, vulnerable, yes. So there were men and women in it, and so we decided to have this aggressive surrounding. We made we're standing because for the costume it's better. We made rubber rocker, rubber skirts till the floor. So these rubber skirts, they gave also a sound. They gave the sound if people walked. And but the body was naked. So in this surrounding, you can imagine in this very hard, aggressive surrounding, this body, and it was quite cold. These bodies really have to work. So we trained also a lot on the bodies. We did in that time. I think we have to do that again. But in that time, we trained 2 hours a day, and very hard training, physical training we did, and also speaking, musical training. It was the whole day we were training. It was very long rehearsals we made at that time. So it was very hard work, and but because of this cold and because of they were naked above, they really have to work with their body. So it really looked also like a punishment if you saw it.
he had in his voice, and what kind of rhythm he has from out of his nature. So if you if you make a duo of Henk and you both going to talk, the audience get a 3 to 4 feeling. You are talking the whole time in a kind of 4 bar, and Henk is talking the whole time in a kind of 3 bar. And if you put them together, you get a kind of so it goes over. So first you have to hear what kind of music is in the voice. Then that's a little step. Then you have to search for how can we get contact between the music concrete, between the music as a melody, and between the text. And that contact you can make on different levels. One level is the contact with the body. If he's moving his hand, we give him a kind of glorious melody. And when nobody is reacting in Berlin on his ta-da, he goes down, we give him a sad feeling. That's one contact, that's a body contact. If he has to make himself sad and angry, give him 2 hammers and beat to a ring, but beat not into the rhythm of the musicians, because that's boring. But the sound of the ring has to have the same pitch or a harmonical pitch which can connect the sound of the musicians, and not the music itself. So that's a level. Then you have the level of his pitch in his voice. We mentioned that every time Florentine or Remco came up with a new piece of music, it crashed when they took the same pitch as Fetja his voice was. Because immediately Johan, and he's very good in that, he was sitting in that rehearsal, I was sitting there, and they played a piece of music and Fetja was going to talk. He immediately does do something like this. I cannot hear him, I cannot hear him. I have to understand him. Shit music. I cannot hear him, I cannot. So we took away the pitch of the music, which were the same pitch as his voice was. So we only could work with very high melodies and very low beats. And then immediately Fetja had the leading part. It was a bit disappointed sometimes for the musicians, but you have to deal with text. And like Monteverdi is saying in his second life, you have to start off with text, and then the music will come. Yes?
We did that already, I think last month we did one in Brussels. The difficulty of we'd like to do it, but on the other hand, it's very difficult because I had a lot of discussions with Paul, because he, of course, and I think he is right, he hates this orchestra sitting in down there. I mean, you don't see the music, you only hear the music. So that already was in the beginning of our cooperation there actually a moral problem to do so. But anyway, we said to each other, okay, we're gonna we try to make a good thing out of it.